Will the New Orleans Saints have a secondary that's capable of leading them to the Super Bowl? Yes, that is exactly what I just asked, and we're going to get into whether or not that is uncertainty. And will we see Hard Knocks come to New Orleans? All that right here on the Straight Up Saints podcast.
You're listening to the Straight Up Saints podcast.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? It's your host of the Straight Up Saints podcast, Christian Vogel here on another Monday morning. And like I've said, the last two Mondays, moving forward, Monday mornings, Straight Up Saints live on YouTube. You can find us here at Boo Crew Media. Make sure to join us. We'll try and make your morning start off on the right foot. And this program is brought to you by Scott Vicknair Injury Lawyers. If you've been injured in any kind of accident, car, truck, 18-wheeler, or hurt offshore, Scott Vicknair handles it all. You can give him a call at 504-500-1111 for a free consultation. That's right, a free consultation. They'll always fight for the win. Now, let's jump to that first question I said, because I started off by saying, do the Saints have a secondary that's good enough to get to the Super Bowl? And I'm sure some people probably, when they end up listening to this, are going to be excited about the prospect of Saints Super Bowl. Haven't heard that combination since 2009, hence why I'm wearing the shirt today to honor that season. But it is not as crazy as you may think it is, because when you go look back at the numbers last year, you look at the health of the team going into this year, and you think of certain things that line up with a former team. Yes, I think this Saints secondary could be the driving force behind what hopefully is a good Saints team. Now, we don't know if they'll hit that ceiling till obviously the season comes, but I do think there's reason to be optimistic about this position group. I'm not going to talk about the whole Saints as a certainty today in terms of what the quarterback room will be, what the receivers will be, what the O-line will be, but the secondary, yeah, we could talk about that in depth and why I think that's going to be a good group. And let's start off by last year. We're going to retrace our steps to get to where we are now. Last season was interesting for New Orleans. Obviously, the offense wasn't great, and the run defense was not great. And I have to preface by saying that because I threw out on Twitter yesterday how the Saints were ranked second in passing yards allowed last year, which is really obviously what you want in a passing league. The Saints only gave up 3,134 passing yards last season. Only the Eagles gave up less. So second best in the league, less than 200 a game. That is what you want. That being said, the run defense was terrible. And you can argue that when you have a bottom 10 run defense like the Saints did last year, obviously teams are going to take advantage of that rather than throw on you. And I guess that kind of makes sense. But we also have to remember, teams want to throw all day. And the fact that the Saints did that without Marshon Lattimore for 10 games is impressive. So I added that in there. Lattimore missed 10 games. Tyrann Mathieu, who was excellent in the second half of the season, he did take a while to get going. Like, I remember I fired off some critical tweets, and those are probably have aged like milk, and you can go find them and say, oh, what an idiot Chris is that he counted out Tyrann Mathieu, because Tyrann was that good in the second half of the season. But Tyrann was not good in the first half. Marshon Lattimore missed 10 games. Paulson Adebo had a really bad sophomore season, and yet the Saints still ranked second in passing yards allowed in the league. Alontae Taylor stepped up. Tyrann Mathieu, second half of the season, was phenomenal. Guys like P.J. Williams had some moments. Guys like Bradley Roby had some moments. Obviously, you hope that next year's even better, and I actually think it can be. So let's start off with reasons why. Lattimore's healthy. Now, could this change? Absolutely. Injuries happen. It's a part of the game. But Marshon Lattimore, as of today, is fully healthy. The guy had a lacerated kidney last year, which cracked me up because I remember during the season there were people going, oh, why isn't Lattimore in? And I'm sitting there going, what? The guy's got a lacerated kidney. I stubbed my toe, I'm out for 2 hours. You're going to tell a guy with a lacerated kidney to get back in there? It's not easy. But that's reason number one. Reason number two, Tyrann Mathieu, Marcus Maye are going to have their second year together as a safety tandem. I think that's important. You're going to know the ins and outs of each other's games. And for a guy like Tyrann Mathieu, I think it's pivotal to have a second year. Plus, he's been at OTAs, and I think that's important for a guy like him. Get that experience in there. Continue to show you're that vet leader. I love that. How about the third reason? Alontae Taylor's entering year two. If there's one thing you took from the Saints secondary last year, it's that Alontae Taylor's built for the moment. From the very, very moment this kid got thrusted into action against the Raiders, steps up against Devontae Adams. Thursday Night Football against DeAndre Hopkins, that's no problem for the Rook. He did that too. So I think Alontae Taylor year two, reason to be optimistic. If you want to feel optimistic or be a little bit, I don't want to say delusional, but a little bit more confident in other fans, How about a Paulson Adebo revitalization? I mean, maybe that is something in the cards. Maybe a bounce back year in year 3 for Paulson Adebo, because he was great as a rookie, not so great as a sophomore. What does that third season have entail? But he'll be fully healthy. Like, I think a lot of people forget he was heating up in training camp, really holding his own, and then he hurts his ankle. And that ankle injury lingered for pretty much the entire season. So he's fully healthy. That'll help. Some additions: Lonnie Johnson Jr., Jonathan Abram, and then Jordan Howden. Maybe one of those three, not all of them, I'm not going to be delusional, maybe one of those three plays a role in this secondary. So there are reasons, absolutely reasons, to be confident about this cornerback room. And I have another reason to mention as well. Before I do that, I just want to salute people who are up bright and early in the morning to watch us here at Brew Crew Media. The second reason that I'm like, okay, I think the secondary really could have a good year: weak quarterback schedule. What do I mean by that? Let's go through the quarterbacks that they're facing. Week 1, Ryan Tannehill, respected vet, won't knock him. So they play Ryan Tannehill. They play Bryce Young twice this season. Jordan Love, is he going to be great? Is he going to be good? We don't know. Is he going to be bad? I don't know. We do not know about Jordan Love. So uncertainty there. The Saints are either going to play Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask twice a year. That should be good for their secondary. Mac Jones. Saints have played him rookie year when he had a great season. Lit him up defensively, what they were able to do with him. So you play Mac Jones. CJ Stroud, there's a rookie. Your second rookie on the schedule. Trevor Lawrence, not going to say a bad thing about him. That's probably, in my opinion, the best quarterback the Saints will face this season. Anthony Richardson, are you going to play him? If so, that's a rookie. If not, it's Gardner Minshew. The Saints dismantled this past season with Philly. Justin Fields, I could see him causing the Saints some problems. Got to give him his respect. Kirk Cousins, veteran quarterback, I give him his respect. Desmond Ridder twice a year. I don't know. I really don't know there. Jared Goff, really nice season last year. Give him his respect. Daniel Jones, nice season. I'll give him his respect. Matt Stafford, give him his respect. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 quarterbacks on here. I say the Saints, you're versing a trusted guy. The rest of it's uncertainty. 10 games of uncertainty. That can help. Now let's talk about connections. I think connections in the NFL are really important. I really do. So Bradley Roby, this past week, talks to New Orleans Football, and he mentions that he sees similarities on paper between the 2015 Denver Broncos secondary and the 2023 New Orleans Saints secondary. Now, that for me is fascinating as all hell, because Bradley Roby was on that Broncos defense, who, if you don't remember, number 1 in pass defense, number 1 in sacks, number 3 in defensive touchdowns, and the driving force behind a Super Bowl championship. A driving force. So he says on paper, Saints secondary matches up. Let's look at that on paper. Literally on paper, looking at it right now. Broncos secondary: Chris Harris Jr., Aqib Talib, Bradley Roby, TJ Ward, and Darian Stewart. That's your main 5. For New Orleans, Alontae Taylor, Marshawn Lattimore, Bradley Roby, ironically enough, on both secondaries, Marcus May, Tyrann Mathieu. Didn't include Paulson Adebo. You could throw him in there if you want. More depth for New Orleans secondary. It kind of makes sense. I think I trust Darian Stewart and TJ Ward more than Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu, because I don't know what I'm getting from Marcus May. I know what I'm getting from Tyrann Mathieu. But cornerback-wise, Aqib Talib was a star. Marshawn Lattimore was a star. Bradley Roby did it all. Bradley Roby's on the Saints right now. Chris Harris Jr. could play in the slot, was excellent at it. It's funny enough, Bradley Roby's probably that now at his career than he is the old Bradley Roby. Alontae Taylor would probably be the old Bradley Roby in this situation. So on paper, there actually is enough talent to combat that, which is funny enough. The second part that I find really interesting, I think, Joe Woods being on this staff. He was in Denver coaching the DBs when they won in 2015. And they won the Super Bowl that year, and he was on the staff. Now he's in New Orleans, and I know a lot of people, when that hire was made, like, I don't know, right? Because you're moving on from Chris Richard. I mean, no, Chris Richard had some success in New Orleans, but Joe Woods, when it comes to coaching DBs, knows how to get it done. He knows what he's doing. So I like that. I like that he's coming to New Orleans. I like that there is a familiarity there of working with a talented defense that has sky-high expectations, because he even said, like, look, in 2015, they knew they could be good. You're not exactly convinced like you're winning the Super Bowl because all 32 teams can say that. But the confidence week by week grew, and he sees this Saints secondary And he senses a similar pattern. So you got to be excited about that. And look, I'm not saying that the Saints secondary is absolutely without a doubt, book it, is going to win them a Super Bowl, is going to get them to Super Bowl. But what I can say is, on paper, I think there's no doubt in my mind this can be a top 5 unit. And I think with this Saints defense, if you see this secondary really come into its own and really start to clamp up and force teams to run the football and force teams to be one-dimensional in the way that you don't expect it to, yeah, why can they not use this secondary as a launch pad to being a playoff team? And defenses travel in the playoffs. That's the one thing that you can take on the road, at home. You know it's showing up. Defense. And I think the Saints, secondary-wise, are going to do their job. And if the Saints secondary can be as good as I think they can on this Monday morning, that should help your pass rush. When there's not as many open guys to throw, quarterback starts second-guessing, a little bit more time for your pass rush, you hit home. Bada bing, bada boom, the Saints are going to be that guy in the room. I promise you, secondary-wise, this secondary's got the talent. I promise you. Is it going to work out? That's why they play these freaking games. That's why they play them. But the talent is there. And are they the 2015 Broncos? I'm going to say no, because the Saints do not have a Von Miller and DeMarcus Ware. They don't. But I think that this secondary really will clamp people down this year. I really, really do. And I think the stars are aligning for that position group to do its job. Now, it's the rest of the team's job to play complementary football, because you're not winning a lot of games. You've got a great secondary and nothing else around it. Offense is going to have to step up. Your run game is going to have to step up, which I think they will. And your pass rush has to step up. And that's actually going to be the interesting thing about all this. Are the Saints going to have a good pass rush? I mentioned the Broncos. What was it? Number 1 in sacks? I don't think the Saints are going to be number 1 in sacks. So they're going to have to be top 10, though. Top 15. They want to be where they want to be. So we'll see what happens there as more people funneling in. And obviously, as always, guys, if you have any questions, pop them in, and I'll get to them at the end of the show. That will be the Monday format. Going to finish off with what you guys want to talk about. So if you guys are listening, first off, thank you on your Monday morning for kicking it off here with us at Boo Crew Media. And then drop in a question if you have below. Now, before I get into Hard Knocks, I just want to remind you that we are brought to you by Ladder and Bloom. And Chris Smith of Ladder and Bloom is one of the top realtors in New Orleans. And for a free marketing valuation of your property, to book a property tour, or to talk real estate, you can give him a call at 504-231-2004. That is Chris Smith of Ladder and Bloom. So I mentioned it. Will the Saints have Hard Knocks come to NOLA? Boy, is that fascinating. And I really, honestly, this is one that I'm torn on, and I would love to know what you guys have to think about this. But let's go into the 4 teams that could be on Hard Knocks based on the recent trends. The 4 options: the Chicago Bears, the Washington Commanders, the New York Jets, and your New Orleans Saints. Those are the 4 teams that are considered the options, going off history and what we know, to be on HBO's Hard Knocks. Now, if we're going to be objective, the Jets would have the most appeal. Absolutely. Aaron Rodgers in New York, first season there. Robert Saleh, some pressure on him. Zach Wilson. There's a lot of drama with the Jets. And they're New York, and I think that would probably be the best thing for ratings. But the Jets have publicly, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, have publicly expressed their displeasure with Hard Knocks and their basically unwillingness to be on the show. Now, that doesn't mean they won't be on the show, but they've been pretty adamant about it. They might get a pass. So if we cross out the Jets and we cross out the Bears, who have apparently been as adamant, if not more adamant, as the Jets about no way in hell are we being on this show, that leads you to the Commanders and the Saints. Commanders, better for drama. New ownership. Ron Rivera's on the hot seat. This franchise always has something stupid going on. They make a lot of sense. They really do. But who knows if they pick them? So that might be the Saints as a fallback option. And that leads me to the grand old question of, would Hard Knocks be a good thing or a bad thing for the New Orleans Saints? I look at it in 2 different spheres. The first one is the fan perspective. I think for the fans, I think Hard Knocks would actually be cool, because you're going to get an inside look at things that we don't get to see. You'll see those meetings. What's Dennis Allen saying behind closed doors? Which a lot of you guys want to know because obviously last season didn't go the way we all thought it would. So you want to know if the coach is doing his job. How's Derek Carr looking on a day-to-day basis? What is it like when the Saints are cutting guys, when they make those decisions? What is that process like? You'll probably get a good idea if that Hard Knocks comes around. What are the new additions looking like? Jamal Williams, Derek Carr, Kendra Miller, Brian Brzee, Isaiah Foskey. How are these guys looking in the black and gold? You get a better idea. The return of Michael Thomas, how is number 13 looking? Is he feeling sharp? Is he healthy? You get a good idea. So from the fan perspective, Hard Knocks sounds pretty damn awesome. And I won't and will never deny that. I think it's a pretty damn awesome thing. And I think when it's not your team, Hard Knocks is a joy to watch. You got to stress about things and be like, all right, it's not my team embarrassing me. But now let's go to the other sphere of things. This coaching staff, they are fighting for their jobs this year. I can't stress enough. If the Saints miss the playoffs, there has to be, and I believe there will be, wholesale changes across the board because they will not miss the playoffs back-to-back years in a crappy division with a roster that has a lot of talent. So Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael, those two in particular, you're coaching for your jobs. And I think the last thing you want are these bright lights and big-ass cameras and nosy crews walking around your facility looking for every possible storyline that they can pull out. That is the last thing you want because all you want to do is work in silence and make sure that when that season begins in September, you can undo all the wrongdoings you had last fall. So I think from a coach's perspective, I'd hate it. I'd absolutely hate it, especially if I'm Dennis Allen, because I'm trying to work in silence, man. I'm trying to do my job, get the best out of my players, and not have to worry about whether or not something airs and something goes live and viral and becomes a distraction for your team. So I totally get why, from the Saints coaching staff, I wouldn't want Hard Knocks. And from the fan perspective, hell yeah, you got to watch your team once a week on TV, like some soap opera. If your girlfriend could go out there and watch the Kardashians once a week, you can watch the Saints doing a little bit of a drama-filled show once a week. I think that's fine. And that's why I actually think it would be a fun-ass idea for the Saints to be able to have Hard Knocks. But not this year. Not this year. I really think this is one of those years you have to just bunker down and get the job done. And you don't want to hear anything in July. You don't want to hear anything in August. All you want to hear are people talking about the Saints stacking W's when the season begins. So that's where I'm at with Hard Knocks. That is where I'm at. I think it'd be hella fun if you're a fan. And I think if you're on that team, a player, coach, anyone, media members, you probably don't want them around. And I think it's okay to say that. But that's where I'm at. And the fascinating thing about this is a decision hasn't been made yet. And I think as we continue to kind of creep into the summer, you're starting to wonder when the hell that decision is going to be made because it should be soon. And I don't believe it's going to be the Jets because I think if it was the Jets, I think a grand old announcement would have been made because who's better for TV than Aaron? I don't know if I'm going to retire Rodgers. That man dominates the headlines like no other player. If he was on Hard Knocks, I think you would have announced it already. So I'm thinking Commanders, Bears, and Saints. And I don't think it's going to be the Bears because similar to the Jets, big market, probably announce it early. They haven't. And I actually don't think the Bears are that interesting. I don't. I think the Saints are way more interesting than the Bears, especially storyline-wise. So I think this might be a two-team race between the Commanders and the Saints. And Saints might end up winning it. Like I said, for fans, I think that it's a win team. Not so much. But we'll see what happens. If that gets announced and if the Saints are the lucky/unlucky winners of getting Hard Knocks. Now, before I wrap up this Monday's live stream, just want to remind you, as always, we are going to finish every single Monday live stream with your thoughts. Now, I can't wait for that when the season rolls around because I'm sure you guys are going to have a lot to say on Monday after a game, and that's why I'm so excited about doing these Monday shows. But let's see what you guys have to say from the bat, whether it's comments, questions, concerns, we're pulling it up, and we'll start with this one right here. With Lattimore back, then Adebo and Taylor competing, it should bring out the best in those two. They need to find a way for both of them to be on the field, but they may start Roby in the nickel. I think they will start Roby in the nickel. I think they really, really like the veteran leadership, the experience he has of playing in the slot. I think that gives Roby the advantage. That said, you do have Alontae Taylor working in the slot in OTAs right now. I'd imagine that trend continues, and I think that'll give the Saints a little bit of versatility. There might be moments where Bradley Roby doesn't have it, and the Saints could turn to Alontae Taylor, and that versatility could get what you want, all three on the field, which is something that I think people would like to see in New Orleans. As a question here, do you see a scenario where Lattimore or Debo and Taylor can be on the field at the same time for most of a game? I do. Now, I think that there's two things that will weigh into this. Three, actually. One is Paulson Debo doing his own thing and basically holding his own at outside cornerback. That's the first thing for this to happen. Number two is Bradley Roby struggling in the slot. If he is, then Alontae Taylor will be playing the slot. And three is Alontae Taylor holding his own in the slot. Those are the three factors that will determine if we ever get this in a game. I think it's very possible we get this for most of a game because Lattimore's going to be out there. Adebo's not playing in the slot, so he's got to play outside, and Adebo's got to play well, though, to justify being on the outside. And if Adebo is playing well on the outside, the Saints are going to want to get Alontae Taylor on the field. Where's the only other spot you could put him? In the slot. So I think it is possible. And look, there might be games where teams are going out with 4 wide receiver sets, and the Saints got to play all 3 anyway, regardless of what's going on with Bradley Roby. So I do think that the Saints could be in that scenario. And as NOLA Gang 09 mentioned, they got great DBs. So that is definitely going to be a luxury for the Saints. I just hope the safeties are on point this season. I almost feel like we should have re-signed Sorensen because he got 2 picks when he got a chance to start. That shows how bad we were with takeaways. The Saints were bad with takeaways, and that is why I mentioned the stat about the Broncos. I know it's very picky, but they were number 1 in defensive touchdowns. And the one thing the Saints really struggled until the end of the season with was forcing turnovers. There was about a September to November spell where I didn't want to watch this defense. And it wasn't that they weren't playing well. They were playing well. They couldn't force turnovers. And sometimes, guys, you can slow down teams for yards. You could slow down teams for chunk plays. But you got to force turnovers. You have to. And this defense did that at the end of the year. Didn't do it in the beginning or the middle of the season. And I hope to God when this season starts, the same cycle doesn't repeat itself. And you hope they can start off on the right foot. The rookie Howden, is he a safety or cornerback? I don't remember. Jordan Howden, safety from Minnesota. He could play in the slot, though, if he needs to. That's what he kind of did at times in college. But he is primarily a safety. So we'll see how the Saints use him if they utilize him his rookie season. How is Smoke Monday looking at safety? I haven't heard much on the Smoke Monday front. That might not be a bad thing. That might not be a good thing. I think for OTAs, it's very hard to be a DB and have everyone buzzing over you. You're not getting to play that physical brand of football. These drills are not really catered to the defense. But I will throw in this fact. I do think it's interesting that a guy like Jordan Howden has generated more buzz than Smoke Monday. And the reason I say that is I don't think you're keeping both on the roster. And I think for Howden, if he continues to ascend this way, I think he might get Smoke Monday's spot on the roster. And I honestly don't think that'd be a bad thing at all. I don't, because I think for the Saints, you drafted Jordan Howden in day 3. You didn't draft Smoke Monday. I think that you want a guy like Jordan Howden as a rookie to already start pushing out guys who are in year 2 out the door if he can. Now, I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying if he does that, then that's a good thing for New Orleans. So we'll see what happens there. Obviously with Smoke, though, everyone will be rooting for him. And I get it. I absolutely get it. Billy says the Saints defense is going to be nice this year. I certainly think it can. And I think that for New Orleans, this is why when the draft was rolling around and people were talking about Jackson Smith and Jigba and people were talking about Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs, I was like, you better use those first 2 picks on defense. And when you have a defensive-minded head coach and you spend most of the offseason fixing your offense, which you should, because the offense was putrid last year, you got to reload on defense, because the worst thing you can do is the season starts and your defensive-minded head coach doesn't feel like he has enough weapons defensively to get the job done. Boy, would that stink. Now, I don't think that's the case anymore. I think the Saints could honestly add a little bit more talent if they want to. But I think what they did in the draft, especially those first 2 picks, bringing in reinforcements for the defensive line, I think that is what you need for Dennis Allen. because the excuses are off the table, but more importantly, the depth is on the table. And that's what he's going to need, because I don't think the Saints are going to be, and this is why I brought up the Broncos from 2015. I don't think they're going to be that type of defense where you got your Von Miller, who is just dominating shit, and then you got the Marcus Ware on the other side reaping the benefit. I think it might be Cam's playing well, not elite, but well, and you are going to have a rotation across from Carl Granderson, Peyton Turner, Isaiah Foskey, even Tano, just rotating guys in, because I think that's what they're more set up to do than have the superstar and the sidekick. I just don't see it that way. Maybe a couple years ago when Cam was in his prime, 2017, 2018, just not now. So you had to add the depth, and I do think the Saints defense is going to be nice. So I do agree with you. Absolutely. I hope Hard Knocks doesn't come. I just don't want DA to be I just want DA to be comfortable in his second year and start getting in the groove of head coach without a camera in his face. Yeah, I think that's kind of the thing, right? Because the last thing you need is distractions for a team that can't afford any. And I really do think the Saints can't afford any distractions, guys. Like, name me another team in the league that I think is without a doubt on the hot seat where if things don't work out, everyone's getting fired. Maybe Dallas, but I think you can argue Dallas has already shown that they have an incredible amount of patience, because 2 years ago, they lost to the 49ers on the dumbest play you'll ever see to end the game. And then this past season, they lost to the 49ers on an even dumber play that you'll see to end the game. So I think they're okay with just repeating their same mistakes. The Saints are not okay with losing. They're not. And I think for them to lose and not make the playoffs in a year where Tampa Bay made it and Tampa Bay stunk, that hurts. So when you run it back and add in Derek Carr and some nice intriguing pieces like Jamal Williams, like Brian Brzee, like Colin Saunders, like Isaiah Foskey, like Kendra Miller, you expect results. And you're not going to wait for them. You're not. You need to have them now. And if you don't have them now, forget about it. Because this is the year to do it. No Tom Brady on the Bucs. The Falcons, they got some talent, but we don't know if Desmond Ridder's good. And Bryce Young might end up being great. But I don't think he'll be great rookie season. I think there's going to be learning curves that he has to get over. So if there's a time to win this division and for Dennis Allen to prove that for once he can go over 500, it is right now. And I think for the Saints, when you got coordinators like Ben Johnson waiting for that perfect opportunity, that perfect job to leave Detroit, become a head coach, hell yeah, I'm not going to be patient with this coaching staff. You have to get the job done. So I think there is a team, that has more, I would say, certain changes to make than New Orleans if they miss the playoffs. I really don't. And maybe that is my personal bias creeping in. But if the Saints miss the playoffs, they're not running this thing back. Derek Carr will be back. Certain players on the roster will be back. You know, your Chris Olaves, maybe your Alvins, certainty your guys like your Lattimores, even younger players, obviously Pete Werner, but coaches, no, absolutely not. So we'll see. But I do agree with that notion. What's up, guys? Saw you're online. Currently, I'm at work. I can't stay duty calls, so keep up the good work. And you've got my like, bro. Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a tough time for people. 9 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Central. But, it's a nice way to start the morning. And I know maybe during the season I'll change my tune if they're not playing well. But I like starting my Mondays talking about the Saints. Maybe that means I should go get help. I don't know. But I like starting my mornings talking about them. And I hope you guys like that too. And especially when the season starts and if they're winning games, I think it's going to be a fun thing. But appreciate you stopping in. John says, I actually like Hard Knocks in NOLA. Look, let me say this, John. I 1000%, as of the fan of me, agrees. Tuesday nights, first off, Tuesdays are probably, maybe a hot take, the worst days of the week. You're sticking Hard Knocks on Tuesday night. I get to watch the Saints on Tuesday nights, behind the scenes, things that I wouldn't get to see if they didn't have Hard Knocks. Hell yeah, I want to watch that. So yeah, if you're a fan, and John, I agree with you, if you want to watch Hard Knocks and you want Hard Knocks in NOLA, how can I disagree with you? You're absolutely right in thinking that. Like, it is something that you don't get to see often, and there are things that you'll get from there. We'll get memes, we'll get quotable shit from there that we could throw out during the season. There's a lot to take out of that. Bruce says, if the Saints coaching staff can't take the heat, get them out of the kitchen. Well, Bruce, they couldn't take it last year, and they're back in the kitchen this year. We're going to see if they learn from their mistakes. But the sentiment is 1,000% true. And if no one has another comment, I could finish on this. But if you guys have other comments, questions, predictions, whatever, throw it in there, and I'll get to it. I 1,000% agree with you, Bruce. Like, New Orleans last year, coaching staff did not look ready. They didn't. Really conservative, never really took a chance, made the same dumb mistakes over and over again. They were not ready for the moment. They weren't. Now you have a whole offseason to think about it. Brought in some fresh faces, kept some old guys in, and now we're going to see if it works. And if it doesn't work, and these things can go 50-50, you know how NFL seasons work, there should be changes. And there will be changes, but I actually, as I start to go through this season, this offseason, I'm honestly okay with them actually running it back with this coaching staff. And the reason I say that is I love the idea of having closure. And we're going to have closure this season. Because if Dennis Allen can't win 10 games with this roster, he's never winning 10 games as a head coach. And I like that. There's a finality to the answer and us saying we can finally move on. Thank you for your services. It's over if this doesn't work out. And if it does work out, it shows why sometimes you got to be a little patient. You got to. You really have to. When does Hard Knocks start? So Hard Knocks traditionally airs in the month of August. I don't know if it's first or second week of August. And it usually airs traditionally Tuesday nights. I think like 9 p.m. Central, I think, is when it usually airs. But yeah, Tuesday nights, start of August, that's when Hard Knocks is available. Because remember, training camp starts in the end of July. They got to get a little bit of film to throw out there. So that's why you got to wait till August. But it usually, once it gets going, you get like 4 or 5 episodes of it, I believe. Probably 4. And it would be fun. I'm telling you, I think us, especially from the content creating world, there's a lot to like about this idea. And from the fan world, boy, you should love it. I'm telling you, though, there's just no way Dennis Allen and them would be happy about it. There's no way. What does the third week of OTAs look like? Who will shine bright? Well, I think there's one thing I'm going to keep saying. Linebacker group outside of DeMario and Pete, what are they looking like? I'm curious. Cornerback group, Jordan Howden in the safety spot. So let's just go DBs in general. I want to see if Jordan Howden can continue to make kind of headline/turn heads at that safety spot. Alontae Taylor in the slot. You want to see if he continues to look comfortable in there because I'm iffy about that, right? Because like I loved how Alontae Taylor played on the outside. You put him on the inside. Does that affect things? But remember, the Saints drafted him because they knew he could play on the inside. It's not a coincidence. The Saints drafted Alontae Taylor and then got rid of Gardner Johnson. Now, Gardner Johnson also kind of talked his way out of New Orleans. But, there's no coincidence there. They saw the talent and they really wanted to put him inside. So now they got the chance. So Alontae Taylor, I'm looking at him. Wide receivers 4 through 6. I know who 1 through 3 are. Who the hell are 4 through 6? You got a lot of options. You got James Washington. You got Brian Edwards. You obviously have A.T. Perry, guys like Kirk Merritt, Keith Kirkwood. Traquan has not been at OTAs yet. I hope everything's okay. I hope it's not like a personal issue that he has to take care of, and maybe it's just a choice. But he hasn't been at OTAs. And I think for New Orleans, that 4 through 6 spot, I know who I'm getting 1 through 3 with Olave, Michael Thomas, Rashid Shaheed. I don't know who I'm getting 4 through 6, but I know the Saints have options. And I'm very interested to see who's able to win that. But it's about making those little strides here and there. Tight end room. You bring in Jesse James. Does Jesse James make any headlines or turn any heads in week 3 of OTAs? If not, you kind of just solidify what I thought it was, just signing him as a camp body. But who knows? Maybe Jesse James reverts to his 2018 form, and the Saints got a little bit of a bargain bin steal here in free agency. So those are some things. And then last couple ones, just some special teams notes. Anyone making a difference in the return game? If not, you're stuck with Rashid Shaheed. And maybe an unpopular opinion, I don't want Rashid Shaheed in the return game because I think he is so valuable as a receiver that I don't want him to get hurt returning punts, returning kicks. So we'll see. We'll see what's up there. But that's another thing that I'd be looking at for sure. But those are some things that I'd be by checking out. Who's going to shine brightest? So to answer the question, Going to stick with Olave and Shaheed. Back-to-back weeks of doing it. I'll go one more week of it. Do you think Alontae Taylor can have a real breakout year? Yeah, absolutely. I think Alontae Taylor would have been a household name last year if he just caught the interceptions that hit him right in the hands. If he caught those passes that hit him right in the hands, he's a household name. Because we were all talking about two rookie corners last year, Sauce Gardner and Tariq Woolen. And obviously with Tariq, he was all about interceptions, right? I think he had 5 or 6 of them. And for Sauce, he had the added benefit of being great and being in New York. And there's nothing like that because when you're in New York, if you're a great player, you get elevated an extra notch. Alontae Taylor was playing really well. I think the two things he's got to clean up, though, finishing the plays and tackling. I think he wants to tackle and be so aggressive that he overcommits and he kind of throws his body instead of tackling with proper form. He is willing, but he's got to be better at it. So those are two things that he's got to do and take his game to that next level if he's going to have that breakout year that we're talking about here. But also finishing plays, man. You can live with the missed tackles from time to time if you're coming up with the turnovers. But to prove my point about Alontae Taylor, because I am fascinated to just pull this up, Alontae Taylor last season did not have an interception, but he had 11 pass breakups. How many of those pass breakups could have been a pick? I think at least 3, maybe 4. How different does his season look in your mind if he had 3 interceptions? It looks really different. So I think he just got to kind of keep, I hate to sound like Dennis Allen, he's got to keep doing what he's doing, but got to finish plays off. Got to finish the plays off. Tackling, that's a form thing. That's something they can work on. His technique's got to get better. I think it will, hopefully. But finishing plays when they're there, that is important to me. And I think that for Alontae Taylor, if he can do that, I do think that he can have that breakout year. And even if he doesn't have a breakout year, guys, if he just plays the way he played last year, that will be more than enough for me to feel good about the secondary. Because you're getting Marshawn freaking Lattimore back, guys. Like, that is huge. That is absolutely huge to get this guy back in the lineup. He missed 10 games last year. And he returned, and guess what? Pick 6 against Philly, silenced that crowd at Lincoln Financial Field. It's what he does, man. It's one of the 5 best corners in the game for my money. And to have him back makes life easier for Alontae Taylor. Makes life easier for Paulson Adebo. I mean, let's go back to that Bengals game, right? I think the biggest mistake I made last year, Saints played the Bengals, and I was going through the Saints' losses because people mentioned Lattimore being out. And I said, Lattimore being out probably doesn't change the results of a lot of losses. It might have for that one. Because T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Tyler Boyd is quite the trio. And the Saints didn't have Marshawn Lattimore for that one. And if Lattimore shut down Jamar Chase, Saints actually win that game. Because who came up with the big play to seal the deal? Jamar Chase in the Superdome, touchdown to kind of seal the deal for Cincinnati. So, yeah, having Lattimore back will help, and it'll help out Alontae Taylor. Alontae Taylor won't have to be cornerback 1 most days. None of the days, as long as Lattimore's there. So do I think he can have a breakout year? Yes. Do I think he will? Let's also go yes for now. And I don't think it's more so about breaking out as much as it is just about finishing the plays that come your way. That's the way I see it. Top 3 for me, Lattimore is a dog. I'll say this. When Lattimore is at the top of his game, I don't think another cornerback can match his peak. That's how I feel about Marshawn Lattimore. I think when Marshawn Lattimore is ready to bring it, I don't think there's a better cornerback. I've seen guys like Tyreek Hill. I've seen guys like certainly Mike Evans, Amari Coopers. I've seen them disappear against Marshawn Lattimore. I've seen the Saints win a goddamn playoff game because of Marshawn Lattimore. Down 14-0 against the Eagles. Who comes up with a pick on Nick Foles against Zach Ertz in coverage? Marshawn Lattimore. Saints are up. Nick Foles is driving down the field, trying to go for the win. Who comes with a game-sealing pick? Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore was so damn good as a rookie, the trajectory of the Saints changed defensively because they sat there going for the first time in their life, holy crap, we got a shutdown corner. Because I've liked a lot of corners that have come through the Saints. Like, let's mention Jabari Greer, right? He's getting honored now this year. Jabari was great. Jabari's peak is never as good as Marshawn's peak because Marshawn's peak is special, man. And let's not forget, for Marshawn's draft class, he was never supposed to go where he went in that draft. He was never supposed to go to 11. He was supposed to be top 5. He was supposed to be top 5. People got worried about the hamstring. They overthought it, and he went to the Saints at 11. But Marshawn Lattimore is absolutely a top 5 cornerback. If you're going to say top 3, I'm going to agree with you. And what we have to agree on is when he's on his game, he is the best in the business. I'm sorry, man. It's the truth. It's absolutely the truth. And I think for the Saints, that is why you sit there. And when I start off the show talking about the secondary and why I think they can do big things, and if the Saints are going to be a contender, it might be because of that unit. It's because you have guys like Marshawn Lattimore right there rocking for you, and I think he's going to do his job. I really do. And while I'm at it, since we're on the subject of Lattimore, before we wrap things up, I'm going to go back to their QB schedule for a sec and think about the wide receivers they have to face. He probably is going to face some pretty damn good ones. So he's going to face, let's see, Mike Evans twice a year, as we all know. That'll be fun. He's going to verse Juju maybe, but he might be in the slot, but that's not a matchup I'm getting excited over. Calvin Ridley in Jacksonville. I'm excited for that one. Michael Pittman in Indianapolis. DJ Moore in Chicago. Justin Jefferson, the rematch. Minnesota, definitely looking forward to that one. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe in the slot for a little bit of that game. So not a lot on Lattimore. Might not be a full plate for him. For the Rams, you know what you got to do. You're going to go up against Cooper Kupp. That's not going to be easy. But he's gonna verse some playmakers here, guys. And it's going to be fun to see how he steps up to the challenge, what he does. And even some young guys, Drake London with Atlanta, even New York. New York's getting younger on that side of the ball. We'll see who he matches up against there. But you look around, some pretty interesting ones for New Orleans. And I think it's going to be fascinating to see absolutely how he does. But Marshawn Lattimore, we'll probably end it here unless you guys have more comments. But he's the type of guy, he's got to be one of their 3 best players this year. He's got to be. Their 3 best players this year, who they have to be in my mind, it's got to be Lattimore. It's got to be Derek Carr. And, this might be an odd one for you guys, but I honestly think it's got to be it's got to be Ramczyk. You got to protect your quarterback, man. If Derek Carr gets hit, Derek Carr's not going to do well. That's the one knock I agree with people on Derek Carr. When he starts getting hit, he unravels. Keep your quarterback upright. We've seen a lot of quarterback injuries for the Saints the last couple of years. We don't need any more than that. But those are 3 guys that I need to see ball out this year. If the Saints are going to be and get to where they want to be, they're going to need those guys. So we'll see how that all translates and plays out on the field. But that's going to wrap it up, guys, for this edition of Straight Up Saints on a Monday morning. As always, like I mentioned last week, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel because every Monday at 8 a.m. Central, we will be going live. And we'll, definitely have more and more to talk about as this offseason goes along. Hopefully we'll have someone on to join us next Monday morning, spice it up a little bit, give you guys another point of view as we talk Saints football. And obviously have your comments, questions, concerns, predictions, whatever, pulling up at the end of the show as always. But that's going to wrap it up here for this edition of the Straight Up Saints podcast. I want to remind you guys, as always, to join next week. Thank you so much for joining this Monday and starting off with Straight Up Saints, the destination for the Who Dat Nation.